Hello and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Universe Podcast. Today, on one of two episodes that will be coming out in the next 24 hours, myself and Erin McGowan will be talking about Season 2, Episode 12 of the Crosshair Show. Wait, no, this is the Bad Batch Show, but today we're focusing on Crosshair in a really emotional episode that we'll have so much to say about right after this commercial break. Welcome back, and happy Star Wars Day, everybody. Wednesdays are pretty much all Star Wars all day. My social media feeds are full of commentary about both The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch. And Erin, I want to start by just asking you, what do you think of having both of these great shows that we're so invested in coming out at literally the exact same time?
It's a lot. Like, I just don't know where to begin. I mean, I will say my overall commitment is first and foremost to The Bad Batch. I watch that right away in the morning, and The Mandalorian, like, my whole family really loves that, so I have to wait until the evening so we can all watch it together.
Okay, that works.
It's kind of nice. We didn't do that last week, obviously, but
yeah,
it's kind of fun to, like, watch it with, like, my parents who really, oh my god, last week on The Mandalorian, they don't know what Purrgil are. They have no idea. My dad was, like, telling my mom, he was like, oh, this is important, when they were, like, in hyperspace, because he had watched it first, too. And then there was the Purrgil, and I was like, oh my god, space whales. And he goes, no, they're squid. And I was like, I gotta shut up right now. Like, I can't say anything else about these Purrgil. Like, I'm so excited to see what the experience for people who haven't seen the animated show is gonna be like.
Yeah. Well, if you wanted that, if you check out the episodes, I wish I could have you on everything, but the episodes I'm doing on The Mandalorian, Ashley Coffin, she's the co-host of the MCU cast and of Bill and Ashley's Terror Theater. She's been with me since the beginning on Mandalorian. She's helping me cover The Mandalorian Season 3, and she hasn't seen those, so we're getting a lot of that great, like, her perspective, so definitely check out those episodes. I ask about it because I will say, I'm someone who watched both, and in this case, I'm happy I watched The Mandalorian first, because the Mandalorian episode was great, but this episode was so emotionally wrought that I think if I'd watched this first, I wouldn't really have taken in much The Mandalorian. And then, I go on social media because I like to talk about these things, and I'm jumping back and forth, I'm discussing one, I'm discussing the other. It's kind of fun that Wednesday is just going to be all Star Wars all day, but I don't know, I'm kind of... I'm feeling like I wish they were breaking it up some more. That it was like one comes out Monday, one comes out Thursday. And I know that Wednesday is just the Disney Plus day now for either MCU or Star Wars. And I'm curious, like, what other fans think, because I think it's very easily understandable if you totally love it, having both of these out at the same time. I feel like there's so much to digest that I kind of wish we were getting like one couple days break and then the other. Yeah,
I kind of agree, because, like, just what it's going to look like for me is I'm going to be always watching Bad Batch first because, I'm on the podcast, and also, like, I just... clones. And then, it's just going to look like The Mandalorian taking a back seat for the first half of its season, which is kind of a bummer. I'd love to have a day to, like, oh, this is Mandalorian Day, this is Bad Batch Day. But, same thing. Like, I understand that that's kind of just their day. Wednesday's our Disney day,
Pretty much. I'm also seeing a lot of commentary, and just to be clear, although I've seen The Mandalorian, we won't be spoiling anything about it today. We're just talking about these two things coming out at the same time. I'm seeing a lot of posts. I think it's very natural that now people compare the two, and each week are like, oh my gosh, this week this one was better, that one was better. And they feel like such different shows to me with such different... Like, I think they do have different audiences, but the audiences overlap quite a large bit, as both you and I are testament to. But they're doing different things, and comparing them seems kind of silly to me. And I think having them on the same day encourages that too.
Yeah, no, I agree. Why would you compare the two? Like...
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah. They're just very different. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, let's dive into the Bad Batch. That's what we're talking this week. And as I kind of joked about, we get an episode about a member of the Bad Batch. This is our Meanwhile on Crosshairs planet. What'd you think overall of this story?
Oh, it hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
I will say, every week, just the Bad Batch makes me like clones more and more. Like, every single Wednesday, I'm like, I was already obsessed with them, and now I'm simping even more. Like, I just care so much, and this show is really hurting my feelings.
The way you could give us... This is what, like, the third or fourth time this show that we've been introduced to a character who dies by the end, a clone, and we care... I mean, I cried when Mayday died. You know, a character who we hadn't met until this episode. And this is, like, the third or fourth time. And it's just such a testament to the writing, to D. Bradley Baker's voice acting, to just everything about the show, that it... And we're going to talk about Crosshair for sure, but just starting with Mayday, like... I got so wrapped up in his story, and I could feel his pathos so much about this just horrible situation he'd been placed in, and that he died knowing that he was dying for a cause that cared so little about him.
Yeah. Yeah, really sad. And it's just the worst because he was so self-aware of it, too. Like you said, like, he knew exactly what was going on. You know, he had that whole little speech to Crosshair when they found out that the thing that they're guarding on this forsaken planet, where Mayday and his men have been fighting raiders for a year, just trying to, like, survive this Hoth-like planet, and they don't even know what they're guarding, and turns out it's just stormtrooper gear.
Right.
And they could have been using that for themselves the whole time. You know, Mayday's armor is beaten up. He has it wrapped with, like, cloth to be warmer. He has a bunch of, like, repairs on it. Like, they are working with the worst of the worst. And if they had just opened one crate, they would have been helped so much.
Yeah.
And what he says when he finds that is, he says, I wish we had had the proper equipment for this. But the Empire ignored... Oh. Nope, sorry. That's the wrong quote.
No problem.
Anyways, he said, new gear for their shiny new military, and we get all the scraps. After all the clones have done, all we've sacrificed. We were good soldiers, we followed orders. And for what?
Yeah.
And just using that same phrasing that Crosshair has used in an opposite way so much, just like, it was the perfect way to drive it home for him. Where it's like, yeah, Crosshair, this is someone who does believe the same thing as you. He does believe that he's a good soldier, and he believes that he follows orders. This is exactly what you're saying. And no matter how much you believe that and how much effort you put into that, the Empire does not care.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really powerful. And that line especially gave me chills. And I like that they didn't show Crosshair immediately responding to it. I think he had his helmet on at that time. I don't remember. But... It was such an on the nose moment that I was kind of glad that we didn't get some big reaction from him, because we didn't need it. Like, everyone knows that's the line that all the clones say when the chip is there. But even for Crosshair, who I think, but even for Crosshair, who we think whatever's happening with his chip, he's continued to say it even in non kind of like robotic ways. It just hit so hard. Let me give you a quick episode summary for those who don't remember this episode, if you're listening later or catching up or the like, but it's a pretty simplistic episode in terms of plot. It's all just about character and how it happens. Crosshair gets called to do a mission. He's going on this mission with other stormtroopers because he's kind of like the one clone who's allowed to do that. And they're going with this lieutenant who is clearly the kind of like fresh out of the academy. He's never been on a mission before, but he clearly seems to know everything and anything that he thinks is important. And he is very clear that the stormtroopers are good, the humans are good, the clones are bad, and the clones are just flat out expendable. Yeah. And from the beginning, they go to this planet to meet, as you said, the clones who've been guarding these crates, led by this guy named Mayday. Their squad is down to just these 3 people. Everyone else has been killed. The lieutenant has no compassion, no sympathy. He says, that's just all your fault. That's because you're bad clones. He continually talks about, how awful the clones are to their face, just having no compassion whatsoever. He assumes command, which again is a nice reminder. I at first was confused because Mayday is a commander. This guy's a lieutenant. But as I was reminded, it's because, as we've already established, like, non-clones automatically outrank, the same way that like all Jedi outranked all clones, all humans as well outrank all clones. So a lieutenant can give orders to a commander, even the commander would normally be higher. raiders attack their base, and that's where the other clones are killed. So now it's just Mayday of that original squad. And the lieutenant orders Mayday and Crosshair to go back and get the crates that were stolen by these raiders. He says 2 people isn't enough. This is going to be so bad for us. And the lieutenant again says, you're expendable. The 2 of them go. They have some fighting to do. They rescue the crates, but as part of the fighting, one of the crates gets blown up. They both get badly injured, and that's when they discover that all that they have in the crates, as you said, is the gear that they could have been using this whole time, but is supposed to be reserved for the stormtroopers. Mayday is injured, and he tells Crosshair, you go back by yourself, you take the crates back, and he says no, and Crosshair clearly decides that, like, saving his fellow clone, who's a reg, something that Crosshair especially had been putting down back in season 1 a lot, and there's the Bad Batch somewhat. He rescues Mayday, he comes back with Mayday, he asks for Mayday to get medical help, and the lieutenant just literally lets him die and says, that would be a waste of Imperial resources, you all are expendable, even you, Crosshair, are expendable, and that is just the breaking point for Crosshair, and he, set in this wonderful moment, he says, Lieutenant, like still holding that place of respect, Lieutenant turns and Crosshair shoots him. And at that point, Crosshair then just kind of collapses, and we'll talk about why that happens. And I thought he might be dead because it fades to black, and certainly you got the impression that Crosshair was pretty badly hurt from that mission as well. It fades to black. My heart stops for a few moments, and then we come back in some sort of hospital lab type situation with a scientist or a doctor or a nurse saying to him, so are you Trooper? And she uses both his clone number, but then also uses his name, and then it seems a little compassionate, but also a little like you're kind of a science experiment, and just says to him, well, let's see how you do, and you just might live. And that's where we end. Did I miss any big parts?
No, I don't think you missed anything big. I didn't write down much as far as, like, the plot. I just wrote down thoughts and little notes about, like, people's names. Like, the other 2 original members of the Clone Squad, it was Commander Mayday and then Hex and Veach.
Right.
And I just get so excited every time we get a named clone. I always write it down, and I'm like, I can't wait to learn more about them. And then I literally have to write afterwards, both
dead.
Killed.
Yeah. It's... Am I right? Have we've almost all the new clones that we're seeing are all the new clones that we're meeting are new clones, right? We've seen very few clones who theoretically survived or who we knew in the Clone Wars, and then survived Order 66, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I think we've seen. Cody this season.
Yeah, and Rex, of course, but
of course, yeah.
Which. I can understand, if for nothing else, than asking D. Bradley Baker to perfectly do a voice that he did 15 years ago out of 35 voices he's done might be a little hard. Mm-hmm. But, although, one thing that I heard, you know clones much better than I do, and granted, it is the same voice actor. He's going to use some of the same intonation somewhat. All of the voices he does are somewhat distinct, but they're all the same voice actor. They're going to blend together somewhat. But is it just me, or did Mayday sound an awful lot like Rex?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. To me, he sounded like Rex if he didn't sleep for the entire war. Like, Mayday just sounded tired.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to put it.
Like, he was very calm, he's very down to earth, very matter of fact. Overall, like, I don't know, he still had, like, a positive energy about him. Mm-hmm. Even though everything about him was so cynical, or everything around him was so bad and so cynical, he very much had that, like, keep the morale up for the squad, but, like, you can just tell how tired and over it he is.
Yeah, he mentions... It's a wonderful bookend, because one thing I forgot is at the very start, we overhear 2 clones talking to an Imperial officer, and they've clearly been told, you're retired. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, what are we going to do now? We they're upset about this because they want to still be soldiers. And Mayday, all he's thinking about now is when I get to go home.
Yeah.
You know, when I get to move past this. And he doesn't say when I get to leave the army. It might be that he still wants to be in the army. But I thought that was a wonderful sort of counterpoint of, first of all, telling us that more and more of the clones are being retired and that they're unhappy about it. But Mayday at the other end, he's just ready to go home. But as you said also, he is still within the chain of command. He doesn't like what the lieutenant's doing, and he's not being terribly respectful to the lieutenant, but he doesn't refuse an order. He doesn't shoot the lieutenant. He doesn't demand something different. You know, he's just like, all right, our lieutenant's being stupid and giving us a dumb order. We got to go. But he doesn't question it beyond that.
Yeah. Like, he puts up some kind of resistance, you know, like you said, when he sends them to go find the crate. He says, like, we can't do that with 2 men. If we're going to do that, I need your men.
Yeah.
And the lieutenant's like, no. He's like, okay. I did my best.
Yeah, for sure. And I also wonder there, because as you said, I think part of his loyalty is to his fellow clones, you know, and it's by the time of that second mission, you know, Hex and Veers are both dead. So it is just him. And then Crosshair. And then he's also willing, like, he doesn't say, you have to take these crates back. That's what's important. I think he's worried that if Crosshair tries to save him, Crosshair will die too. And so he doesn't know Crosshair. He's just met him this day. But he's still like, no, you go on. You leave me. I don't want you to have to die too. Yeah.
Which was it was a very important moment. Because at the start of the episode, okay, a little funny thing, but, you know, an ambush happens. We see either Veach or Hex chasing one of the raiders by, like, the shuttle that Crosshair came in on. The shuttle blows up, the clone is killed, and Crosshair pulls off his helmet because of some feedback and he can't see well, and then he focuses again through his sniper rifle and shoots the raider.
Yep.
But not to kill. We see then he goes and he finds blood, which is just funny to me. Like, y'all, we don't bleed from blaster fire. We know that. We should know that. And yet you're going to be tracking this man through the snow of Barton 4 by his blood. Okay, sure. Anyways.
You know, we just are not always the most consistent about that. And that's just... Remember, Obi-Wan said that only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise with their shooting. So, you know, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. And so then later, Crosshair and Mayday are tracking that guy again to try to find out where did the raiders go. You know, we have to go recover these crates. And they find him dead in the caves. And Mayday says something about, I don't know what bothers me more, the fact that his comrades, like, left him to die. Or, sorry, no, he says, I don't know what bothers me more, the fact that he's wearing stolen armor from us, or the fact that his comrades left him here to die. And Crosshair just goes, oh, well, like, no point in carrying dead weight. And Mayday kind of, pauses, and he goes, remind me not to die on your watch.
You're so right. I totally forgot about that line. And yeah, that makes Crosshair carrying him at the end so much more powerful.
So important. Because, I mean, Crosshair's had that attitude this entire time.
Yeah.
He's always been about, like, you know, follow orders. If someone falls behind, that's on them.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. And, again, he's still saying it, but clearly he doesn't quite mean it anymore because he's seeing... The Empire doesn't care. They're not going to reward me for being the only one who survives. They're not going to reward me for being, like, the one who makes it out. So might as well actually start caring about the people around me.
Yeah.
And because him and Mayday see things so similarly, like we said before, with the good soldiers follow orders, and because Mayday has tried so hard to get the proper equipment, you know, he says when he's trying to disarm... Crosshair steps on a bomb, basically. Right after saying there's no point in carrying dead weight, Crosshair steps on a bomb, a pressure grenade or whatever, and Mayday's disarming it in this, like, kind of MacGyver-type way because he doesn't have the proper equipment. And he says, you know, I wish I had the proper equipment for this, but the Empire's ignored all of my requests, so I've learned to improvise. I guess all the clones have had to after the war.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just liked that. It's Mayday just like showing his resilience and like the lengths he's willing to go, and I think that means a lot to Crosshair of like, yeah, he's kind of just like me.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
Oh, yeah, it's basically just Crosshair seeing we are super similar, and I'm seeing, like, what I'm destined to become if I keep just following orders without questioning or without looking out for my own good. Like, I waited on Camino for however many days, and here we are on a frozen planet, and it's going to happen again, and the Empire's probably not going to help you out.
It's so true, and I think there's something so powerful about what Crosshair goes through, because I think it is so relatable, you know, and I know I have felt this as someone with mental illness and my queerness and disability, and I've heard this talked about from, you know, people of all sorts of, like, groups that are mistreated, that sometimes you can sort of feel that, like, if you're the special one, if you're the one who is, like, you know, you can really make yourself loved by the group that's looking down on folks like you, then you'll be okay, then you'll be accepted, and you'll be treated differently, you know. And I've heard, you know, women or people of color or other queer people give incredible talks about this idea. And when the moment comes when you realize, like, that in someone else's eyes, you're still just, you know, part of this group. And I think that's what's happening somewhat for Crosshairs, because he I think he, even more than most of the Bad Batch, so to some extent all of the Bad Batch, not necessarily like really bad ways, but they always saw themselves as above the regs, you know? And I think he has had a sense of, like, okay, whatever's happening to the regs, like, I'm still the best, you know, sharpshooter in the Imperial Army. Like, I'm not going to get treated that way. I'm going to get treated better than everyone else. And for him to have that dual moment of, no, I'm just as expendable as they are, and also that helps him break through and have compassion, because I don't think it's just him being self-centered here. I think it's just that he hates what is happening to Mayday, and that realization puts him in Mayday's shoes as well as Hex and Veers and all the others who are dying. I knew going into the season, like, I thought it was pretty obvious that we were going to have Crosshair have some moment of breaking away from the Empire, and I knew they had to really do it well, and I think they absolutely gave me what I would have wanted.
Yeah. No, it was perfect, because it would have felt wrong to have Crosshair desert.
Yeah.
Or just, like, be like, oh, yeah, I guess they were right, I'm gonna leave now. Like, that just wasn't... It's not him, and it doesn't make sense for his character. But being pushed to the point of where the only option he can see is to take out his anger on a commanding officer who has abused him and his brothers so badly makes total sense.
Yeah. Because he doesn't try to rally the other stormtroopers to his side. He doesn't try to report this guy. He doesn't do anything to try and fix the overall situation. Like you said, it is just, this person has quite literally just killed my brother officer, my brother soldier. I have to just, you know, and it's, you know, it's very Crosshair's anger doesn't burn hot. It's ice cold, you know? And so for it to be that very, like, calm, controlled, say the guy's, you know, say lieutenant, have him turn around, shoot him, but it's still, you can see how much anger there is. It was such a perfect moment for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved it.
So why do you think he collapses at the end? Because I have a couple of different interpretations of what that could be, but I'm curious, what was your reading of it?
My understanding is, like, you know, Mayday kind of saved him by pushing him behind this rock during the avalanche that injured them both. And so Mayday was injured worse than him, but he still got flattened by an avalanche and then had to, you know, carry this quote-unquote dead weight over this, like, icy tundra for overnight, you know? And they were sitting there. They had to stop at one point. Oh, my God, it broke my heart. Crosshair, like, puts Mayday down against this rock, and Crosshair's lost his helmet. Mayday still has his, and he just literally, like, hugged Mayday to him. They just, like, huddled together, like, for warmth. Like, Crosshair's, like, shivering so badly. And, like, we see kind of the sunset, and that's the night. And then the next day, they manage to make it back to the outpost. And so I took it as, like, Crosshair has just been, like, he's exhausted. He's injured. He went through this trauma. He then had to drag someone however many miles or kilometers back to the outpost in these unforgiving, harsh, like, weather circumstances. And he doesn't even have a helmet. So I just took it as, like, probably frostbite, exhaustion, fatigue, you know, like, that's how I took him collapsing.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. There was a small part of me wondering, like, is this supposed to be some, like, last remnant of the chip or something, that he's broken what he's supposed to do? I don't think that's what it is. I really don't want that to be in any way. I think it's what you're saying, along with, you know, kind of the mental break of, like, what has kept him going through all this, through losing all of his friends, through being around these stormtroopers who don't respect him and don't respect everything he's done, is the good soldiers follow orders. That's who I am. That's all of his identity, and he's had to sustain that through all of this, and now even that is gone. You know, it just is that sense of a person who's just, like you said, physically broken, mentally broken, like there's just nothing left there. And in a way, I thought the next question that he ever hears, being someone asking him his name, and asking him, in, like, do you prefer the number or the name, was so perfect, because I think he's just to the point where just, like, I'm really like, I'm glad that he's not like, okay, I have to go find the Bad Batch right now. Everything. I think he doesn't have this new direction. He's just done with everything.
I agree. Yeah. He doesn't have a plan. He doesn't have some higher purpose he's trying to fight for. He doesn't even know about the idea of a rebellion or care about it, I think, at this point. Like, I agree. He's just so broken down that, like, I don't think he cared what happened to him after he shot that lieutenant. He probably expected to be shot down immediately.
Yeah,
and
I think so too.
Just didn't care because that man had abused him and Mayday so badly, and he just wanted him dead, and he didn't see anything else worth living for. Therefore, he didn't care about the consequences.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And I think when he wakes up, he may be just like, wait, why am I still here?
Yeah, a bit of confusion.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. The last thing I want to ask about is, what do you think of the lieutenant?
I mean, I hated him.
Well, yeah. I'm asking because he played the role he was supposed to play perfectly. I had a few moments of wishing he was a little more subtle. Like, his evil and his utter disregard for the clones just seemed... If I'm surrounded by people with guns and I keep telling them to their face how expendable they are, there's a lack of self-preservation in that. Just a debate, like, it just, I don't know, I kind of wished he had been dialed down just, like, from, like, 10 to 8, like, still just as bad, but maybe a little more subtle, a little more, like, you read between the lines to understand who he is. It felt like they had to really hammer us over the head with just how bad he was to justify Crosshair doing what he did. Am I being too picky here, or what was your take on him?
I mean, I don't know. You're right. It was very heavy-handed. He was very aggressive about it. But I also think that we've been seeing a more subtle version of that in Rampart through the entire show. You know, we've seen the Empire, you know, like I said, abuse and just, like, be so careless with their lives the entire time.
Right.
And I think you're right. It is a lack of self-preservation, but also... This is his first mission. You know, when he gets there, Mayday asks him, how many missions have you led? And Nolan doesn't respond. Yeah. Mayday goes, that's what I thought. And Mayday had also said to him, Nolan said some BS about, and you will respect me because, you know. And Mayday said, in my experience, respect is something to be earned.
Such a good line.
Such a good line. And I loved it because then we see that exact thing happen for Mayday. He earns Crosshair's respect.
Yeah.
And clearly Nolan didn't because Crosshair killed him. And so, yeah, I think you're right. It was super heavy-handed. He has no self-preservation skills. But also I think it is a kid's show. And maybe in order to, like, justify a killing 2 children, they wanted it to be so heavy-handed.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm the person who also wanted Pong Krell to be less heavy-handed, so, this is just my thing in general.
Pong Krell was out of control, though. Like, I agree on that one. It was too much.
I agree. All right, well, that's all I had for this episode. Any other kind of last comments you wanted to make? I mean, other than I think we can just make emotional noises for a long time about how good this was and
right,
all the feelings.
Yeah, you best believe I've got some notes. I've got some things to say.
I knew you did.
First of all, opening scene, we see Crosshair. He's got his toothpick again. I loved it. It's such a perfect little character quirk for him, like chewing on a toothpick. And after Nolan comes up to him, sees that there's other clones on the ship, and is like, ugh, like clones. Crosshair goes, problem? And he goes, yeah, I don't like used equipment. And then Nolan gets on the ship, and Crosshair just flicks his toothpick and follows.
It was so interesting, because in that moment, I thought that what Nolan was saying was like, and I wonder if this is what Crosshair heard, was, I'm talking about the regs. You, Crosshair, you, Super Soldier, sharpshooter, you're okay, but it's those that I don't like. Because or else it just seems so stupid to say that directly to a clone, but then later we learn that, no, he is that stupid.
He is that dumb, yeah.
But it was such a good moment. And the toothpick it's always been so good.
It's always been great. Talking about Mayday now. Didn't think I liked mullets. I guess I like mullets. Also, his beard, incredible. Like, I'd love to see a luscious beard on a clone.
As a person with a who lives a bearded life, I am very happy to see more facial hair on the clones. I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm. He's just so handsome. Mm-hmm. Such a beautiful man. I will mourn him for weeks to come. Another thing I liked is when they were kind of attacking the Raiders' outpost. Mayday had made a comment about having to be more resourceful, and we saw him use, and I think this is for the first time, we saw him use 2 blaster rifles at once. Or I think they're called rifles. I don't know. But the normal blaster that clones carry, he used 2 at once.
Right.
Where normally we've seen commanders, like Commander Cody uses 1. Captain Rex uses 2 pistols.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, yeah, he probably would have had 2 pistols if he could have. He wants to be, like, double gunned, and it makes no sense to use 2 normal guns. Yet he's had to improvise, and that's his way of fighting now. And I just thought that was cool. I wrote here, Crosshair really just refuses to die. Because I think he's living on spite alone. Like, there's no way, like, he should have died, but he's just like, no.
And I think that may be it as well, is that what he's living on is just, I'm following orders. That's what I got to do. Nothing is going to stop me. And that's part of why he just gives up at that very end. Because it's the only thing that's keeping him going is just spite at the Bad Batch. And, I'm right, they're wrong. And I don't want to psychoanalyze him, but that alone would be enough to, like, drop someone, just like if you've been living on just this spite of, like, I have to show my former colleagues that, like, my former compatriots that I was right, they were wrong. Mm-hmm. And now, like, that's gone.
Yeah. What else here? Oh, the scientist at the end, her name's Emery. Mm-hmm. She is the same scientist we saw in the last episode with the Zillow Beast. She is the scientific assistant to Dr. Hemlock. So, when she said, like, once you recover, the doctor will come, she's talking about Dr. Hemlock.
I didn't put that together, but that's so good. So whatever he's in for is more. There's more cloning in his future, probably. Like that. That's the idea. Might be that they want to make a whole new set of clones based on him, the super soldier, instead of just the Jango Fett models. Who are already, like, genetically enhanced to be a lot better than normal soldiers.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. I wonder if we'll see him and Nala Se ending up as unlikely comrades or anything like that. Because I truly don't believe he's going to die like this. There's no way. Yeah. There's no way. He's, of course, going to get out. He's Crosshair. Everyone loves him too much. There would be riots in the streets. Like, you couldn't just kill him that way.
I think we have to eventually have a moment of the entire Bad Batch reunited. Echo coming back and Crosshair coming back.
Ugh. My heart would sing. That would be so beautiful. Yeah. The only other thing I'd written down for this episode was I just love Mayday. his funny little quips, like when he gets the bomb, he's pretty sure it's disarmed, and Crosshair goes to move, and he goes, whoa, don't get off it yet. I'm gonna hide around that bend. Like, when I tell you, slowly lift your foot. And Crosshair's like, you don't sound very confident about this. And Mayday goes, oh, I'm confident. I'm just not stupid.
Yeah. Which, it's funny because I saw the exact same thing happen in Arrow, which I'm rewatching for dubious reasons. And it was the scene where the person who does it is like, okay, I'm going to stay here with you. And, like, I'll guide you through it and I'll hold your hand. I'm thinking, like, why do you both have to die?
Yeah.
And realizing that I've seen that moment 100 times, and normally the other person stays with them and is like, I'll be here with you. Either we both make it or we don't. And, like, there's a nice emotional moment there, but also it's stupid. And I like him being like, I've done everything I can to help you. I hope it works. But if it doesn't,
I don't want to be dead too.
I'll remember you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about all I had. I mean, I'm not going to shut up about Mayday for any time in the future. I'll just keep talking about him, but I'll take my thoughts to TikTok rather than making everyone stay here longer.
You know, we'll direct people to TikTok because it's totally worth seeing. I'm all here for it. I'm all here for the love of the bearded clones. As well as, to me, I mean, not only did the beard look good, but I thought it was also very symbolic because it was, you know, the clone, like, again, I've never been in the military, but I've known enough people who have been to know that, like, you know, keeping up things like proper grooming and, like, you know, keeping yourself shaved and your hair well kempt and stuff like that, that, like, in really dire situations where discipline is starting to break down or just the sense of, like, everything is normal, we have to do what we have to do, is breaking down, that those are some of the first things to get forgotten. You know, and that, so to me, the moment I saw him having that thick beard, you know, my first thought was like, okay, things have not been right on this little planet for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that just goes into, like, what I was saying before about he's just so tired. He's just so over it. Like you said, he just wants to go home, you know? Yeah. He makes a comment to Crosshair about, you know, they're coming to get the gear by the end of the week, and then hopefully me and my squad can get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. He's just done.
He's just done.
Well, this was a great episode, as always. For those who are patrons, stick around because we've got a new Shazam movie coming out. Not Star Wars connected at all, but like something Erin and I both love. So we're going to talk about that just a little bit in our bonus content. But for those who aren't sticking around, Erin, you mentioned TikTok. Tell us more about your TikTok, your other social media, places where people can find you.
Yeah. So I do cosplay stuff on the side. Most of my TikTok and Instagram tend to be about that. I'm Lady Tano Creates, all one word, all spelled normal, both on TikTok and Instagram. I have been on a little, like, mini hiatus lately because I was on vacation and then I got my wisdom teeth out and I'm just slowly getting back to it. But I've had some drafts I'm posting, things like that. So if you guys like to hear my thoughts about, you know, the Bad Batch, things like that, I have some other just, like, general nerdy things that I'll give my thoughts on. Otherwise, just a lot of crafting and things that I'm doing with my Ahsoka cosplay. Go ahead, follow along, see what I'm up to.
Yeah, it is awesome stuff to check out. Definitely check that out. For myself, also, I have a big announcement I want to make. This podcast was started, and everything I've been doing up till now has been part of the Stranded Panda podcast network. It's an amazing network of podcasts. The MCU cast, which I often talk about with Matt Carroll and Jeff Randall, is kind of the flagship of that. And it has been a fantastic place for this podcast to be birthed and grown. And I'm so proud of all the great things I've gotten to do with them. And I will still continue to have nothing but love in my heart for that podcast network and all of the people involved. But we are making a move. TrueStory.fm, which is another great podcast network. It's the one that does the Marvel Movie Minute that I've guested on a bunch of times. They also have the 80s podcast that I've been a part of. This podcast, as well as my other podcast, Superhero Ethics, are both going to be moving over to there. It's just a better fit in a lot of ways for the kind of direction that I'm taking this podcast. Again, nothing but love for Stranded Panda. I'm going to still have some of those folks on as guests. I'm going to still guest on some of their shows. Everything is happy and copacetic there. It's just going to be a little bit of a better fit. For you, the listeners, if all goes well in technical land, nothing should change. You should still be getting the same RSS feeds that you are. The same websites will still be working. If you do not get, hopefully you're hearing this episode, if you do not get next week's episode, please contact us. Email Matthew at theethicalpanda.com, or you can find me on Twitter, Facebook. All the links are in the show notes. Let me know, and that'll let me know there's a technical problem. I don't think it'll happen. I think all that will handle as it is. For the patrons, what you've been paid so far, you're going to keep all the membership benefits you get. True Story FM has a membership program, and so I'm going to be shifting over to that from Patreon, but all of you will get, carried over in. Those of you who are going to be getting free merchandise because you're at that level, you will still be getting that. We're going to do those, send out in June when we're halfway through the year. For anybody who's been thinking about being a patron, I really, of course, always want your support. This is the only time I'm going to say hold off for a week or two. I want to get the membership program up and going fully, and then have you sign up there instead of as a patron. But pretty much everything is going to stay the same in terms of benefits, all that kind of stuff. So thank you all for all your support. And of course, most importantly, though, forgetting about all that, I just want to let you know, what'd you think of this episode? What'd you think? Was this the right way to give us this moment in Crosshair's journey that we all knew was coming? What'd you think of Mayday? What'd you think of Lieutenant? Send us feedback. You can send it to Matthew at theethicalpanda.com. You can also find us on Twitter, on TikTok, on Facebook, basically by searching for The Ethical Panda, but you can also just look at the show notes. All those links will be there. So to our patrons, hang out just a few moments, and we will get into the magic of Shazam. For everybody else, thank you so much, and have a great day. All right, so switching rather radically, going away from the world of space wizards and instead going into the world of terrestrial wizards. Shazam, the second movie's coming out. You asked me if we were going to be covering it. I'll say, actually continuing my support of the Stranded Panda Network. We're not going to do full episodes of it on superhero ethics, because they will be doing a full episode about the new movie on Bingers Assemble. I believe they've done a full episode on the first Shazam movie, but we'll just, for our bonus content, spend a few moments talking about the original movie and what we think of the next one. So, starting with Erin, what's your thoughts on the first Shazam movie?
I really liked it. And I will say, I don't watch DC films. It's not something that's up there in importance to me. I've never seen The Dark Knight, which I know I should. I know those are genuinely good films, but I just...
If anyone listening is a big The Bad Batch fan and wants to be our co-host, because apparently I've just
Oh my god!
Batman is always going to be my first love, and I think The Dark Knight is one of the best movies ever made. But
okay, I will watch it.
I'm not saying you need to. I'm just saying my soul was hurt for a few moments, but I've moved on. I'm on my old person nonsense again. I'll move on with my life. Go on. Keep talking.
No, it's all good. I deserve some disrespect for that. I'm going to be honest. I can't be this into nerdy stuff and not have seen Batman.
Have you at least seen the Batman? Robert Pattinson's The Batman, the new one that came out.
Yes.
Okay.
I saw that one. Zoe Kravitz is amazing. She's so hot. I'm obsessed. There's just too many hot people in one movie, but really good film. Yeah, I've seen the Suicide Squads too. I don't know. I've seen a few movies here and there, but I just never was into Superman. The Dark Knight, I was a little too young when it came out, so it was deemed too scary for me. And I just haven't gotten to it, but I know I should. I've played the Arkham Asylum games. Those are fun.
I mean, there you get Kevin Conroy, who is, I think, generally regarded as one of the best, if not the best Batman, voices Batman in those.
Mm-hmm. And Mark Hamill for the Joker.
Yep, who is amazing, truly amazing. And I will say, as much as I'm much more of an MCU fan these days, but I do love a lot of the stuff DC does. I'm not going to try and start a fight here, so I will not give editorial comments. I'll just say many people love the Zack Snyder interpretation of the Superman, Batman part of DC Universe. I do not. Zack Snyder, so I'm never going to push you to watch the Zack Snyder movies, but that's a whole other discussion. But yeah, so back to Shazam.
Back to Shazam, yes.
Which is, I will say, somewhat different in tone from the Dark Crusader and some of the other, like, darkness of the Zack Snyder movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, like, being that I don't watch DC, the thing that pulled me to this movie was Zachary Levi, the main character. Yeah. I have loved him for years. I mean, he was Entangled. Incredible in that movie. Also, though, he was in the show Chuck that came out.
Yes.
You watched that show?
To me, Chuck is what... The Big Bang Theory, I think, is a show about nerds by people who make fun of nerds. Mm-hmm. Chuck is a show about nerds by nerds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Chuck is just... It's a great show. It's about... Zachary Levi is this nerd. He somehow gets a supercomputer downloaded into his brain, and now he's working with spies, and he has no idea what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And he's just this lovable goof. And yeah, I just really fell in love with him and his acting. And when I saw he was going to be in a superhero film, I was like, heck yeah. And also... This is going to show my age a lot, but the guy who plays the younger version of Shazam, what's his name? Billy Batson. Mm-hmm. The actor's name is Asher Angel, and he was in, like, one of my favorite Disney Channel shows. Like, I know. But...
there is no judgment on my face. I am passively taking in this information.
Like, I really connected to that actor because it was the first time I had seen, like... a character in a Disney Channel show have a panic attack. Like, his character experiences that. And, like, that was something I'd never seen expressed in, like, a lighthearted show or, like, media like that I was watching at the time. And so I really connected to him as an actor, too. So when I saw both of them, I was like, I have got to see this film. Yeah. So I watched it in theaters when it first came out. Really liked it. Let's talk about the actual film itself now.
Yeah. I do feel a need to say... Zachary Levi is someone who, there's been a lot of discussion about him, some comments he's made on social media, putting down vaccines and other stuff. I haven't dug too far into it. I don't think he's the greatest person in the world. I'm not sure I would be super excited to go see a new thing that he's doing now. But yes, I utterly fell in love with Chuck, and I watched Shazam not knowing any of that yet because of him. And I think he's phenomenal in this, and I think he'll probably be phenomenal in the next movie. He really is good at that. Like, because in Shazam, he's playing... It's like the movie Big with Tom Hanks that you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. It's from the 80s. But, where the actor is playing a 12-year-old who just looks like a 30-year-old. Mm-hmm. And Zach Levi has such that, like, boyish charm and wonder about himself that I think he plays that perfectly.
Yeah. No, it was really good. I was watching the movie, the first Shazam, with my parents just a little bit ago, like last week. And my dad was sitting there and he was like, this is so stupid. Like, why is he so stupid? I was like, Dad, he's 13. Like, yeah. I know that's an adult, but he's 13. Of course he's going to do dumb stuff. Of course they're making videos about his superhero powers and posting it on the internet. Is that stupid? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But, they're kids, and they're just trying to be, like, with the times. So I just thought that was funny. I liked that a lot. It's just, a fun and different trope for, like, a superhero.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. And I'll also say, having watched now a lot of the Young Justice show, in which there's a really fun dynamic where, because Shazam, most people just think of him as an adult hero. They don't know that he's secretly a 12-year-old boy. Mm-hmm. And, or 13 or whatever it is. I think actually they say 14.
Yeah, you're right.
He seems to me much younger than that, but I know that, like, 12 to 15 is when, like, some people hit puberty, some people don't. So you can be, like, a very young 14 or a fairly old 14. So I guess it works. But in the Young Justice show, which is all about these, especially season 1, these teenaged heroes who are so upset that the adult heroes don't treat them as adults. And so Shazam is in this really... When a couple of them figure out that Shazam is actually a kid themselves, but he gets let into the adult Justice League stuff, there's just a whole great dynamic there. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I will say I'm someone who, and I know this is weird for someone who talks all about superheroes and science fiction, war movies and the like. I don't really love fight scenes, and especially I don't love, like, people punching each other fight scenes when they're all CGI, which this is pretty much all it is, because they're pretty much always fighting against, either this other superhero guy, the Doctor, or these, like, the manifestations of the 7 deadly sins. And I think the first time through, I found it really charming because it was, all of his people in the foster care family get their special powers and they all get their own little moment. The second time through, I was just really bored with the fight scenes, and I thought they went on way too long. But there's still so much that is so charming about this movie that it's still probably in my top 5 of DC movies that have come out.
Yeah. I agree, but for me it was flipped. Like, the first time I saw the movie sitting in theaters, I was like, when is this fight scene gonna end? Like, it's still going. And then when I rewatched it with my parents, because I kind of had perspective and knew how long the movie was, it kind of seemed to move faster. And because I remembered thinking it was so long the first time, it just seemed to move faster for me.
I'm glad at least we're on the same page that there was a lot of very long fight scenes.
Yeah, like, I was just like, and Dr. What's his name? Sivian?
Sivane, something like that.
Sivane? Somebody. But I was like, he is still just punting Shazam across the city of Philadelphia. And they are just flying and then getting punched into the ground and then punched through the ceiling and yeah. But I actually really liked him as a villain. I thought he was a really cool villain. The idea of, like, this kid who's just been, like, beaten down and, like, mistreated. And so, of course, he's gonna, like, hyper focus on something so bad. He just wants power. He just wants respect. And these 7 deadly sins have told him, like, we can give you everything you want. And I loved how at the end of the movie we saw that the 7 deadly sins were just using him. He was never the one in control, because the reason they're able to defeat him is they have to draw out all the 7 deadly sins in order to make him bleed, to make him punchable. And the last one inside was envy. Really telling. But the way Shazam got him to come out is saying, like, oh, like, I know we have the other 6, like, the big guys are out to play, but, like, little Envy is just scared, hanging out inside. Like, Envy doesn't want to come out and fight. And we see the Doctor, like, fighting it. He's like, no. And Envy, like, pushes himself out, like, turns the Doctor's face into his own. The Doctor pushes him back for a second. And then Envy fully pushes himself out to attack Shazam. And that's how they're able to defeat the Doctor, is because of Envy's envy. And I just thought that was really cool. I liked that little bit of writing.
Yeah, I thought it was really good, especially the way that the Doctor he's in midair and the Doctor loses all powers and just drops, and Shazam is able to catch him. And it made him, I mean, this is obviously much more of a kid's movie, and so he's not a very emotionally complex villain as the villain. But it makes his origin story really powerful because he is the kid who gets bullied. And I think there's clearly a real parallel in that, what happens to is it Thad?
Yeah, Thaddeus is his name,
Thaddeus. Like, he's got this awful father who, when his older brother is bullying him, the father is, like, encouraging the older brother and saying, like, come on, if you're a real man, you can fight back.
And he's like 7.
And then... Yeah, exactly. And then, so that's really awful. And then this wizard, who's completely a jerk, just, like, kidnaps him to this weird mystical realm, gives him this test that, literally the 7 deadly sins are whispering in his ear. I don't know if I could I think
I would
very few people feel like, could be. And I think part of the point is that the wizard eventually, he doesn't test Billy Batson because he kind of has realized no one is as pure as heart as the wizard's looking for. So... Because you see all these people who the Doctor has gathered together who all had this experience and were not good enough. And so the wizard, like, rejects him, tells him these things about, like, you're never going to be good enough, you're never going to be pure of heart, and then just puts him right back into this moving car where he's totally freaked out, and it causes this, bad problem with him and his family, and the car crashes, and his father's really badly injured and loses his legs for the rest of the movie. I don't really love the you're now disabled, and so, like, that's the horrible, like, in my memory, the older brother had died, and I thought that was the thing that the father blamed him for, having it be that he becomes disabled. Excuse me. I didn't love quite as much, but still, I totally get that it's like, it's one more thing that the father has always blamed him for, and it doesn't make what he does okay, but it to me, it's that you may have there's let's try that again. You know, in an older comic book that also got turned into a movie, the movie's not great, but at least captures this idea of it. The Killing Joke, the Joker at one point, the sort of whole point of it is that every good person is one bad day away from turning into a villain. And I think part of the point of the book is that, like, that's not always true, but I think in some cases it definitely is. And for Thad, like, of course it is. Like, I'm not sure that if I went through all the things he went through, that I wouldn't have gone down a somewhat similar path. I really hope I wouldn't. And I think the movie does a great job of showing that, because while Billy Batson doesn't go through quite the same thing, he's abandoned by his mother in this really horrible way, and then meets his mother again, who again, abandons him again a second time. And
restates that it was purposeful. He didn't lose her. She left him. Yeah,
exactly. And, like, she's a teen mother. I have some sympathy for why she did that, but I also think that from his perspective, it's horribly, traumatizing.
Yeah.
And then you see him start to become a jerk and start to become a bully and start to forget about his friends and do all these terrible things. And I thought that was such a good way of showing that, like, a lot of times the perspective is, well, in a bad situation, the bad person will go bad, but the good person will stay good. And here I felt like Billy started to go down a similar path, and it's his friends rallying around him, his family, that kind of pulls him back. Mm-hmm. And it makes the Thad story, I thought, so much more powerful.
Yeah, like, really the only difference between them is the people around them supporting them. Thad had no one, and Billy somehow ended up with these people who weren't willing to give up on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also say, the idea of the people who weren't willing to give up to him was another thing I loved about the movie, because I'd never really thought about this until my sister started trying to become a foster parent. And so, like, through her, I was learning a lot more about the system, and I've met other foster parents. Most of the time, if a foster family is shown in a movie, they're horrible. Mm-hmm. It's the kid is in a foster home, and the foster parents are abusive, and the foster parents just want the money, and they aren't treating the kid well. And I hadn't really thought about how new it was to see a foster family, these two parents who truly love these kids. Mm-hmm. And, like, one of them's going off to college, they're supporting her, they're going to miss her. One of them has, got a disability, and they're doing everything they can to support him. Like, they're just wonderful parents for this beautiful, mismatched, put-together family. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of the movie, both because it's just beautiful to watch, but also because we so rarely see that with a foster family.
Yeah. And the fact that they were both foster kids, I thought was really beautiful. Because, like, they saw a problem in the system, and they did what they could to fix it. Yeah. And I think the movie kind of clowned everyone into thinking this is going to be the same foster situation where, they bring him in, they seem so nice. Welcome, here's your little sister, here's the home, like, let's show you to your room. They bring him upstairs, they're like, Freddie's going to be your roommate. We'll let you settle in. And they shut the door, and Freddie turns to them, and he's like, it's not what it seems. It's hell here. Like, you're looking out that window, it's a far drop. Trust me, I would know. And, like, kind of refers to his, like, bum leg. And Billy's like, oh my God. And then Freddie's like, nah, man, like, I'm just kidding. Like, it's no big deal. I'm a terminal cancer patient. Like, I got 3 months to live. And he's like, what? And then Freddie's like, nah, man, I'm playing with you. Like, you're taking everything too seriously.
Yeah. It was so good. Because, you're right. I was totally clowned by it. And because we know he's run away from all these other foster homes, and it's mostly to get back to his mother. Mm-hmm. But I think the implication is also because they're not great places. And I want to be clear, there is a lot of bad things that happen in the foster care system. Mm-hmm. But I think the overwhelming majority of foster parents are wonderful people who are doing their best in a very broken system. And so the fact that, like, they literally do that misdirect to us, knowing that that's what we're used to.
And everyone's expecting it.
Yeah, this wonderful family. It was just such a nice touch to the movie. Mm-hmm. I think that's about all I got to say. Anything for you? Anything in particular you're hoping for or thinking about for the next movie?
Not really. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm just super excited to see more, like, Freddie and Billy. They're the cutest little best friends. Like,
they really are.
There was one moment in this movie where Billy was going to, like, give up his powers and therefore Thad was gonna kill him, kind of a thing. And Freddy was like, no, don't do it. Like, you're my best friend. Like, you can't die.
Yeah.
And that was just, like, really sweet, you know, even though for a lot of the movie, Billy was kind of rude to Freddy. You know, he let him get beat up by people. He abandoned him. But at the end of the day, like, Freddy is still just so accepting of him. And, you know, Billy feels the same way we see as at the end.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to see more of their little friendship, the things they do together, the way that Shazam, or Billy, no, it was Shazam, clowned them all at the end of the movie. He takes the eye out of Thaddeus and he's looking at it, and then he's like, what? You can give me all the power?
That's so good.
And, like, pretends he's gonna, like, shove it in his eye, and he's like, got you! Like, I'm not gonna put a globe in my eye, that's so gross! Like,
yeah, he's still a kid. He loves that stuff. And I'm especially looking forward to it because, you know, for most of the movie, like you said, they were getting bullied, especially his friend. I'm sorry, I forgot his friend's name again.
Freddie,
thank you. I keep going to Frankie. You know, for most of the movie, the two of them are getting bullied, especially Freddy. And for Freddy, it's in part because he claims that Shazam is his friend and is proven that everyone thinks he's proven a liar. So the fact that the movie ends with Freddy having lunch not only with Shazam but with Superman. I really am looking forward to seeing, like, are they kings of the school now? Like, what's that going to be like? So that's going to be fun. All right. Well, thank you as always, Erin. This was your idea. I really appreciate the thought. Thank you to everybody for listening in. Want to know your thoughts on Shazam? We'll be back to something more Star Wars-y next week. And most importantly, have a great day.